I'll go ahead and share my screen. Sorry, my webcam just stopped working, so we're jump into it. All right, so before we jump into kind of individual training on accounting side, I know many of you have been in on a number of longer sessions where we kind of work through the overall process. So this is going to be focused on accounting specific steps and kind of where we want to bring you guys in. One of the questions that I have and that we'll kind of start with, and this will kind of come from a business perspective, I'm going to kind of walk through the steps that need to be done. Kind of post the transaction being completed. What I'll do is leave it up to you guys to kind of figure out who gets assigned what and how that division of labor works. This group here, do you guys all do AP, AR, both kind of split by business units?
I see some folks shaking their heads. So maybe talk about the kinds of roles.
Most of this group will do
Yeah.
AR.
AR, okay. All right, so we'll start with that then. Yeah, I think so. And we'll do, yeah, so we'll start with that. That's great. When I'll walk through our task list, and this is a list that is being shared with you. We had some issues getting it shared to everyone, so it got sent to a few. Hopefully by the end of today, we can have this to the rest of you. And I would just kind of want to start at the top of this list and use this as our agenda for what we want to focus on within BC of what we would consider to be standard receivables functionality. And then when we get into kind of our invoicing process, we can talk about what that means with our business specific process that we have in BC. Any questions or comments before we kind of start with that flow?
Anything, you guys? No? They're a quiet bunch and we're going to draw them out a bit.
I mean, could we see that list that you're using as the agenda? I mean, we don't need to like memorize it. Can we just look at it real quick?
Yep. See, can I zoom this? You able to see it all right?
No, we're still just seeing your Business Central.
Okay, let's stop that. Try it one more time here. Is that any better?
No,
White screen?
blank. Yep.
All right, give me, I'm gonna
There you go.
switch.
There it goes.
There we go. Okay, good. All right. Yep. So when we talk receivables, this is kind of a standard template that we have across many projects. So we'll start with that and then we can customize what you guys may need to do. But yeah, we're talking viewing and editing customers, looking at payment terms, posting invoices, posting a sales credit memo, sales return order, applying entries on a customer account. That's basically, we'll go through here probably on today's call.
Yeah, that's great.
Our main focus areas.
Okay. All right, we're good on that one.
Okay. So our first one on the list is view, edit customer. And I know some of you may not have had access into BC yet. I know there's a shared account that some of you are able to access.
Have any of you guys?
I'll just kind of walk through this.
No, okay.
We looked at it.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
All right. So
Okay.
This
At
is
least-
people with a nice, fresh set of perspective here. So.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So when you log in, you'll have this kind of home screen with the top here. So customers is the first one. If you want to, we can also go into our search and find customers. Slowly. Yeah. Customer list page is basically a list of all of our customers. Now we
I think you're
have
frozen,
all.
Matt,
Matt.
we're not seeing what you're seeing. We're still seeing, we didn't see you hit the tell me.
All right, my Teams is acting up. Hani, can I pass it off to you for just a minute? I'm going to switch to a different connection and then we all hop back on. I'll walk
Absolutely.
through just kind of overview, looking at customers. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Hello,
sorry about
folks.
that.
How are you? I don't think I've met everybody, but I think I've talked to most of you guys. I think Mary, we were just going through the checklist, right?
Yeah, so I think Matt was going to just go in and show the customer setup.
Yep. Give me 1 second. I will log into SmartSource. I was in and I just got out and then I'm just going back in. Can definitely share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty, so customer setup. So today's call is a lot of the, especially the finance and accounting calls, right? Like the accounting folks.
Correct, and folks that have
Yeah.
little or no experience in Business Central.
No, that's fine. So if you, I mean, I know we'll wait for Matt to come back, but speaking as an accountant at an accounting level, I'll give you some golden tips and golden nuggets. Number one, there is no module of Business Central that is kind of syncs overnight, right? Anytime you do any kind of item receiving, selling, creating, warehouse entry, it's a live touch to the subledger and a live touch to the GL entries. So if you're not used to that concept from your old job, your old ERPs, then you guys need to know that. So chart of accounts is basically just a view page. And I mean, you guys will get navigation training and stuff eventually. But there is a table called general ledger entries, right? So don't worry about what I'm typing and how I get there, but just understand the high level. So general ledger entries in this test company. Remember, you guys are all of SmartSource is going to be all in one company, right? But most of you who are K-Smith employees are going to be limited to KS entity code. So this is the biggest boundary wall between K-Smith and the other SmartSource entities. Anything you do will be marked KS. You can come up with whatever letters you want, but we can just call it KS for now. So this is a giant table of inventory, direct cost, and this and that. So obviously, there's multiple ways of filtering and all that stuff. So that's a whole different discussion. The other angle that you kind of at a very, very high level need to understand is everything is live and everything is done simultaneously. So if I'm just looking and I'm sort of jumping to a different end of VC, let's say I'm looking at a posted sales invoice. You charged a customer $2,000 McMinnon's, right? So I'm kind of showing you the other end of the spectrum, right? This is a posted invoice. You charge them $2,000. Forget about receiving the money and doing the deposit and all that stuff. That's banking. That's a separate discussion. But the receivable is $2,301. If you simply just go to home, find entries, what I'm trying to explain to you right now is one transaction creates a spider web effect into a bunch of system tables, right? Keeping it very, very high level. Hey, Matt, I'm just explaining posted entries to them from a sales order. So if you went to any of these tables, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 records. that tie to the same document number. So invoice number 103029 kind of had 7 entries in 7 different tables. They all mean something else, but at the end of the day, it's the $2,000 receivable. Well, guess what? I have the experience, maybe Philip does, maybe the folks who use BC Dynamics today at Casement Doubt, but they can probably read this and say, oh, I think I know what happened, without even going into the McMinnon's order. I know that it was a customer number was used, because obviously the customer tables are starting to get used. I know a GL entry happened, because there's a 6-line GL entry happened. Value entry means an item was used. Remember, an item has 2 tables at a high level from an accounting, right? There is item ledger entry and item value entry. The easiest way to remember that is quantity times price equals amount, right? Q times P. So the Q is the item ledger entry. The P is the value entry, meaning the dollars. So you guys are more concerned about the value entries. So essentially what's happening is, as I post a sale, I'm doing debit AR, credit revenue, and I'm also doing debit cost of goods sold, credit inventory, right? At the easiest simple list example, I can kind of just look at that without even going in and looking at the item numbers and things. And then here is an additional functionality that we've created for you, installed for you, called commissions, right? So first of all, any questions on how BC operates at a very high level, or did I confuse anybody on the call right now, even if you're new to this?
They don't look too confused. They're nodding that they're okay,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, all right.
Then
So
in
first-
order to achieve all this is what we're trying to go through, myself and Matt. We're gonna say, hey, when you set up a customer, there's some bookkeeping part of the customer card. We're gonna go through that right now. When you go through an order or an invoice or a credit memo, there is some bookkeeping based on what you do, right? And then something gets debited, something gets credited, something gets debited, something gets credited. So all of those are there's multiple areas of where they are, but a lot of them are called posting setups. So there's inventory posting setup, cost accounting setup, taxes setup, general posting setup. So I need to have a separate set of calls with the folks that are kind of going to be in charge of setting up the system. The good news is a lot of it is already set up, because we had already started down the Smart Source corporate path, and then K-Smith kind of came in, right? So it's not that the system is not set up at all, but we can tweak it for K-Smith's operations if the Smart Source finance folks sign off and say, yeah, we want that setup to be added. We want that setup to be added. Some customers need some accounting, vendors need some accounting. Bank accounts have already been set up. I've already had a couple of meetings with the folks. Locations and warehousing needs to be set up. So there's basically accounting and bookkeeping and everything. But at a master record level, that's how it is. So within the folks on this call, Mary, you may want to have a set of accounting folks that are kind of the doers, like the actual people who process invoicing or set up a customer card, but they don't really care because everything should be already set up in the back end, the core finance, right? And if I have questions, typically I would be asking Christy or Sharon, or I would be asking Philip or Catherine. Is there anybody else on the call who kind of needs to help configure the system now, right? Like we need to do that sooner than later, if something comes up. All right, Matt, I'll give it back to you, if that's okay with you. Any questions?
Jill, but
Yeah, maybe Jill, but right now I think
Yeah.
we're okay.
Yeah, so this call is not meant to be, hey, this shell is pretty empty. Let's go configure it. The configuration is done. It should just work when we click it. But if there's something that you can stump me and Matt, let me know and we'll try to figure out configuration for that. But I don't think there is such issues right
Yeah.
now.
We want this to be a meaningful experience for you. So if you're bumping into stuff that work, and say so, right? Because your feedback makes all the difference.
Yep, perfect. All right, Matt, I'll let you share if you're okay with that.
Yeah, hopefully it's working again.
Hopefully that was helpful to you guys.
Oh, wrong one. Let's not share that. Share that screen. Okay. All right, am I visible now? Can you see what I'm
Yes.
clicking on?
You are.
Okay, great. All right, apologies for that. Yeah, so what Honey was showing is good to understand kind of the background posting. We'll talk now kind of a little bit the front end of what the configurations are that we've set up and how that affects those ledger entries in the background. And then a little bit more on receivable specific things. So come again into my customer list here. Like I said, we've got all of the SmartSource customers in here. So if we want to search, we can just start searching for a customer that we know is a K-Smith customer. I'll go ahead and open up their customer card and we can start looking at the way we configure and what we may need to modify on a customer card. Number name, straightforward. We'll talk about balance and balance due in just a little bit, but basically this is a summary of those ledger entries that are being posted in the background that gives you a nice view from an overview of that customer balance. We have a credit limit that we can assign. I don't believe we brought over any credit limits, so if that's something that needs to be configured, we can update that.
Matt, the Sound Credit Union that you're showing, is that the actual customer number for K-Smith?
The old system, your old system customer number is in here. This DB customer code.
Yeah, it looks like you guys added the 7. What's the 770 represent?
So there were duplicates with some of the numbers that SmartSource had. So in order to distinguish it, we just put a prefix in there. It also makes them all kind of the same length. There may be some revisions to that. This was the initial data to try and get us working with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so for all of the K-Smith customer records, do we have, so like you've put a 7 in front of it now, is that going to be universal so that all of our customer numbers we know will be starting with the same digit?
As of right now, yes. When we do the final load into production, we're determining whether we kind of merge all of the customers and eliminate any duplicates, and then kind of create a new customer numbering system. You'll still have access to the old system number, but we may change and kind of consolidate SmartSource and K-Smith into one list.
Okay, but for right now, our transactions are, we have different customer numbers. They start with 7, and then the entity code KS. Are those the only 2 kind of unique identifiers that make sure that triggers that something's K-Smith?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great question. Yeah. Couple of features that I'll point out that are available on the credit card. We do have, or on the customer card, we do have a blocked flag. So we can turn off the ability for this customer to either be shipped to or invoiced or everything. Credit hold, whether if you want to do like a hard stop on everything or they're a discontinued customer that's no longer active, this is our field where we can block a customer from having any transactions.
The team here, is that something that we use today or is that a new function that you have? Do we even have any customers who are blocked? No, okay, okay, thank you, go ahead.
Perfect. Yep, so I would say that's a good thing to do. If you flip to either ship or invoice, ship will let us ship product, but not create an invoice to them. Invoice will not let shipping or invoicing. I'm not sure why you would ever ship but not invoice, because I would think you'd want to get paid, but I'm sure there's a reason why Microsoft built it that way. But mostly I would say you're either blocking invoicing, which prevents any sort of transaction going to this customer, or you do all, which doesn't let anything happen, no updates, no changes or whatever to the customer.
So how about, because sometimes we put people on credit hold, so there's no way in the system to block them. So would this block them for sales putting in an order as well?
Yes, it would. Now, let me back up a second and say that the credit hold / credit limit functionality in BC is soft. It's a soft credit hold, meaning it's going to send you a warning. So let's say this customer had a $100 credit limit. We would show it turns red. It says we're over our credit limit because they have a balance due of 500. If I were to create another order for this customer, I'd get a little pop-up that says, hey, this customer's over their credit limit, but it wouldn't stop me from posting it. So that's why I say it's a soft
Yeah, I
hold.
don't really, we have like, right now we don't even run credit checks on our client. So they have unlimited credit limits, but sometimes if they're like, over, like if they're not paying their invoices and they're, like over 120 days and we're not being able to contact them, we usually put them on hold.
Yeah.
So I just like flag it, but it doesn't stop them from putting in an order because if they miss the note that I put in on the customer, it still goes through. And so, but that would be a way to stop it, and only accounting would have access to the customer card.
Eventually, yes. We have not locked that down, but yes, that would be something that the accounting team would have access to. So yeah, switching it to invoice would allow orders to be input, but not to be posted or shipped. So it wouldn't allow any sort of like transaction to go forward beyond, we can take orders, but yeah, if they've missed their payments and you want to block them, then I would recommend blocking at the invoice level. Blocking at all levels will not even let you create a sales order. And when you are in your customer list, one of the things that's nice about this, and I'll clear my search so that I can show you to filter. If I wanted to, I could come in here and say, I want to look at all my customers where blocked is, and I can choose ship, invoice, or all, or I can select all. And here are the customers that I have that are blocked. Looks like some of them are K-Smith ones. So we may have brought some in that were in blocked status. Oh, sorry, that didn't go through. That was where the customers are not blocked. That was the reverse. So you can see my Sound Credit Union came in at the bottom because I did turn that on to block the invoicing. But everyone else is inactive Smart Source customers. So that's probably a decent list to have someone checking on a regular basis and say, hey, I just want to check, make sure that all my blocked customers are customers that I really want to have blocked, and I'm not forgetting to unblock anyone that maybe paid off their bill or whatever. My customer again. Turn that off so I don't forget. Okay. One of the other important fields on the customer card is the salesperson code. As of right now, we are working on getting that all configured based on your new salesperson setup. I guess I won't assume. Does this team manage that salesperson assignment on customers, or is that someone else?
It's accounting, yeah. We assign the sales reps and.
Okay, so once I have that, I will try and get I've got the import ready to go. It's just I haven't had a chance to import it, and that's on my list for today. So for tomorrow's call, I'll show you how we can assign salespeople. This will be easier when we actually have them in there with configuration set up.
Okay.
Do we need to get any of that data to you, Matt, that has the customer list along with the salesperson assignment? Or do you have all that?
I thought we had it, but let me.
Yeah, I sent you all our customer lists like a couple months ago and all the vendors. Yeah. It's you do have it, but we've probably added a few. I don't know if you want us to manually enter those once we go live.
Yeah.
Or we could rerun it and send it to you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you don't mind doing that, that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, but remember the logic one, it was really ugly and you, remember how the
Clean it
way
up.
that it exported, they were in columns instead of rows, so you had to, I don't know what you did, but you fixed it for us.
Yeah, if you want to just send the same unformatted version, I'll do a
Okay.
comparison on that one to see if there's anything that's changed.
Okay.
I'm not going to worry about too much else that's in this section. We'll come back to the salespeople. These are fields that are SmartSource specific. So as of right now, we're not using any of these, but they will be turned on at some point in the future. On a customer, we can fill in the address and information. I noticed on a number of your customers, you had email addresses within kind of this address to field. So let me show you a little bit of how contacts work within a customer so that you can maintain this data a little bit cleaner. So I've got an accounts payable email in here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And actually, I'm going to delete it out of there because really on the email or on the mailing address, I don't want to put an email in there. I do have an email over here, and that is obviously looks like it's a person rather than a group of people. So we have a scenario, right, where we have a couple different emails for this customer. We have two real ways we can manage it, but we'll look at both. So the first one is we can use contacts. Within every customer, we create a contact automatically that is the customer. And then we can create additional contacts, and I'm just hitting new here. It'll assign the next one, and I can do Jay Coker, and I don't know what the actual name of that person was, if someone knows. For Sound Credit Union. If you don't, that's fine. So now
but it's Jay Coker every time I send.
Okay. We'll just put it in there and call it good. This contact, because it is now a relation to Sound Credit Union, to customer, it's a customer relationship. Now I've got a kind of a nested contact within this customer, and I can come down here. Oh, look, it even copied it. Great. So now I have Jay Coker as a contact under Sound Credit Union, but I'm going to also create another one. I'm going to go back to my customer card, and I'm going to create another one for accounts payable. And now I can come down here, and all I need to do is change that email address to what I had copied. I'm going to take out that phone number. I'm guessing that's a different phone number for accounts payable. And now within my customer contact list, I have my two separate contacts with two separate emails, phone numbers, etc. So this is really the best way to manage keeping track of contacts at a customer. And you can add as many of those contacts as you need. You can put in a title, etc., a name, so that you can easily keep track of who they are.
Yeah, the reason why we put the email address on the address line is because then we remember instead of mailing it that we need to email it to them. But I know BC will work a little bit differently where we could just email it directly from BC, right?
Yes.
And then it will just look at the email address and send it directly to the
Yes.
email address that we have on file.
Yep, and there's even a cool function. So let me show you the way BC handles emailing and documents. So in the menu here under customer, we can come into document layouts. And now for this customer, we can choose for all of these different usages, first of all, what report we're going to use. And I'll show you that we're going to just use the defaults, but we can also choose the send to email for that document. So let's say for a confirmation order, I'm going to copy from a report selection. because I don't want to have to worry about what report it is. I should just grab my. Hold on, let me refresh and clear that error. Just back out. All right, we need to set this up, and I thought we had that for confirmations, but we will look at that. Confirmation. Maybe that's why it didn't come through. All right, we will skip confirmation and we'll go to our invoicing because that one it should be set up right. Let's go to invoice. If this is something we want to use, and I'm guessing it is, then we can set this for all customers to basically bring in these values. Is this, well, I'll finish what I'm doing and then I'll show you. So then my accounts payable is my email. I can select email from my contacts. So this will then bring in my available email addresses. And now I have it set that when I send a sales invoice to this customer, it's going to go to accounts payable at Sound Credit Union. But I can create an additional one for credit memo, etc. Does that make sense? Is there any questions? Is that something we want to start getting your customer set up like? Does it seem?
Well, that makes sense. That makes it very, I guess, simple than the way that we've been doing it. Makes it a lot easier because we got to print the invoice and then scan it to ourselves and then forward it to the client. And that's why we always had the email address show up on the address line.
Okay. And like I said, I'll fix the sales acknowledge the sales confirmation, which is basically
I think
Acknowledgement.
Gail's have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
For, yeah,
Yes.
there's a lot of customers.
Yeah, no, you can have
Oh, gosh.
as many as you want.
I heard
You just-
that there's a lot of customers.
Is that very good
I remember
comments?
if we put it on there. Matt, if we have going to multiple, the send to, do we just add it to more emails or do we create a line for each one?
If you do, so this is what we did in when I was there, and we found that if you do a line for each one, it's going to create 2 emails. So if you need to send it to more than one, oop, let me expand this so I can actually see what I'm doing. Then I would recommend the semicolon space, something like that. If you want it to go to 2. You already use emails from contacts, so we can't do that. I was afraid of that. So yeah, we would need to add another line. Invoice 10074. And put in the second one. Yeah. If there are, I mean, I know we've got email addresses in address fields on a bunch of customers. We can start transferring those over. If is there any sort of data that you guys have currently that's not in the address field that we could upload with? I'm just trying to make life easier and get as much loaded in as possible for you.
Yeah, when I send you the new customer list, should I maybe remove the email from the address line or?
If you want to leave it in the address line, I'll be able to, I'll just search for an ampersand or an @ sign to see if that's in there and then use that for the email. Is that the only place you really kind of store it?
Yes, and then sometimes there's like a memo field they'll have where we add the email for like the contact, like the uh, the person. So if they had an AP contact, that's where we would put it. But normally all invoices where we email it to them is on the address line, but sometimes we have like, I don't know, for Tram or anybody that's in the office, like we have, like what they were saying, we have multiple email addresses and we might, sometimes we even have like 5, right?
Yeah.
So we have like what we have like special billing instructions, and then so we have to refer to that sheet on what we actually do with the invoices.
Who to send it to? Yeah.
Because we can't fit like all the email addresses in the field in Logic, because it only accepts like so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
So are you sending the invoice to all 5?
Yes. Yeah, we would email it to all 5, whoever they want it to go to.
And that would be done as a contact.
Yeah.
Smart Source has the same thing that goes on where it's multiples. But based upon the discussions that we've had, we would add that as a contact. So that we're doing it all the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. Put them in as a contact, and then you could add them into the document specific settings.
So you just check the box on who you want to email it to, and it will send the email separately, or will it be one email?
So this will send separate emails to accounts payable and accounting. It's going to basically work its way through this list.
Yeah, sales, because also like a lot of the sales team wants to be included. I mean, maybe we'll have to change the procedure, and because they want to be included on the email when we send it to their client. So, I guess, does it keep a record of it so they could go in and see who it was sent to and when?
Yeah, it does. And because whoever is sending it, it's going to be tied into their Outlook. So it'll be sitting in the Outlook sent file in your desktop Outlook, along with within Business Central, there's an email outbox.
Oh, okay.
It's user specific. So this is my email outbox, which is nothing because I don't have a valid email, but anyone that sent it would find it in here.
Okay.
It does show, where was that? I thought I saw history. Yeah, there you go. Sent emails. So on the customer card, you would see sent emails for anything that has been sent to this customer from anyone, not just from your user. So it tracks and logs all of that.
Yeah.
So if the client called the sales rep and said, hey, I never got my invoice, the sales rep can go in here, they can look and say, oh, we sent it to you on the 28th of August at 4:22 to this email address. Do we maybe have the email address from, or, however we want to couch that conversation. But so can anyone see that record, those transaction records?
Yeah, so it should be read-only view. I think most everyone will be able to do that on a customer card.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's it.
All right, so that's a great question. Also, that brings up another point. I'm looking at just kind of the default on the customer card, and that's going to apply for any document that gets created, right? A sales order, an invoice, credit memo, etc. But in that scenario, customer calls up and says, hey, I can't find this invoice. Probably the best way to do it is this information box over on the right-hand side. So this is customer specific, and it shows us, here's our quotes, our sales orders, shipments, and invoices. So this would be where I'd come in and say, okay, let me find what invoice you're talking about. Oh, yep. Let's see. I've got invoice number 3026, $500. That one did not come out. I'll go ahead and open that up. So I click on that KS, which opens up my invoice. And I should have the same. I can send the email from here. I don't see a sent emails. Yeah. But I can find my, that's just through OCR. Yeah. So we would have to look on the customer card in order to see if it had been emailed or not, or go to that outbox to show when it was emailed. Just make sure I'm not missing something on that side. Yeah. But this is the actual document that you would be sending, right? We can send by email because I set up those customer contacts. And it's going to pop up and allow me to hit send before I actually do. So I won't, because it would actually go to them. But I can resend a invoice at any time by opening it up, that posted sales invoice from the customer card. And I've got my PDF here and my note of the email body that's coming in. If I want to add a CC, I can do that there. This would be manually. Which makes me realize that I think our solution for copying a salesperson in addition to the customer, let me discard this. So here's my second one, which is my accounting. Came through. Let me go here. I think I forgot to show a field here. Oh, there's a spot where we can add a CC. So let me double check and find out where, because you should be able to do a to email and then a CC email, and that's where you'd put in the salesperson code. So I've made a note on this to see about how best way to include a salesperson on an email.
Matt, when we're looking in that where you have the dashboard on the right-hand side, kind of a little bit down, if this client calls in, yes, on there, will it tell us how many invoices are open versus how many invoices are paid? Because if the client wants, oh, I don't have that $500 one, can you send it to me? And then they also say, well, which 500, I have 4 $500 ones, which one? And we can see which ones have already been paid and which ones are still open. Will that information be in this spot?
Yes, so we can do it here. And let me make this a little easier to view. Anything that is open will have a remaining amount. Anything that's not will be 0. So this first one has been paid. It actually was a $0 invoice, but that's a separate thing. So this would shows that, yeah, this has a remaining $500 amount. So that's one way that we can do it. We also have this closed filter. So this one here is closed and this one is not. When I click on that posted sales invoice tile with the 2, it's going to give me all of them. I can then come in and say, I want anything that is unpaid. And I've got a few here that would show me. And that filtered went away from just my one customer to all customers. So I would need to add that customer back in. The other option that I can do is if I am up here in my balance, this $500 balance and balance due, these are both hyperlinks. You can see when I hover over it, it gets a line under it. When I click on this, this is going to bring up only my open transactions. And again, I've got a flag over here of open being true. So checked on. If I want that to go away and I want to look at all of them, I can bring up my filter list, which basically shows you what's being filtered, and I can clear off my open filter. And now I've got both those invoices in this page. So there's 2 ways to get around it, but basically it's that open versus closed status for each of the invoices and the lines. I said I'd come back to this balance due. So when Hani was talking about those ledger entries that get posted in the background, this page basically accumulates it. It's the exact same as these invoices over here. Balance due is going to use the due date of that invoice and tell you how many of them are past that due date. So if I make a little more space here, I can see that my due date for this invoice was 8 days ago. It turns red along with the invoice number, telling me that this is a past due invoice for this customer.
Jill, do we have the same terms for all customers? So is that something like if we dated invoice, they automatically due in 30 days? Or do we have unique payment terms with different customers?
Yeah, majority of them are net 30, but there are some that are, I think Banfield is at 90, Caitlin. I can't remember. I know Kaiser is 60, so there are some that are a little bit different that we've made an exception for.
All Tammy's accounts are net 60.
Oh, net 60, okay.
That,
So
is
can
that
we
information-
have different, the invoices, can we have different templates for those clients for based on their terms?
Yeah, so the terms will just calculate the due date. So on the customer card, we just have our, oh, sorry, in payment section, we have our payment terms code. So this one has 30 days. And we need to clean that up. Let me make a note to do that. We really want to use that as our payment terms code. That's the difference where we had a K-Smith and we had a Smart Source one. So we'll consolidate those. This is what determines the due date of that invoice. So when it's posted today, it would be due 9/28, 9/27. And the system does all that calculation and populates the due date in that invoice. So we don't have to worry about it. We just can see on a calendar basically what that due date is. As far as a template, so then we do have the ability to do 60-day or even, I believe 90 is in here. Yeah, there's net 90. When you say a template, what does that mean? What are you looking for? Like a different format of it, or just that it tells the new due date based on those terms?
Yeah, just the new due date, because I know on the bottom of the invoices, it prints out like net 30 on. Is that what the default is, or do we set them up each client?
Yeah, so it will pull whatever the terms are. Let me pull that up. So
Yeah, I think, yeah, when I gave you the template, I made a note of that. So could we look at Banfield to see what their terms are? I think it probably should say 60 if we looked at Banfield.
yeah, so on this one, it's got terms net 30 with no due date did not calculate correctly on this one, but I'll check on that. This was early. This was from before we had everything fully set up.
Yeah,
So let's check Banfield.
Money on that, Matt, so we can see it.
Which Banfield?
You can pick any of them. They should all probably say 60.
See, it did not come in, so we'll need to fix that. 30. This one did come in with 60.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to map them as much as I could. Yeah.
Matt, can we do exception reports? So can we pull a report that shows us everyone who's listed as 60, everyone who's listed as, can we pull a report that lists by term so that we can actually just go through when we're first setting this up and make sure that people are correct?
Yes. So from your customer list page, we can put a filter and grab our payment terms code. So then I could say, I want everyone that is set to, what was it, 30? Oh goodness, there's a lot. 30. So these are all the customers that are set to 30. I could update that to 60. Here are my 60-day terms. All of my K-Smith ones are these kind of 7/7.
All right, thank you.
It's like 90. We have these here. yeah, so that filtering on the customer list is a great way to kind of validate that data. Pull this one, show you, and I think this one was calculating. So the payment terms code, we're going to consolidate that. We shouldn't ever have to create new payment terms code. It's just choosing which of the valid ones that we want to assign to that. So let me do this real quick because it looks like it was not calculating. Okay. Also in payment terms, we have the ability to do discounts. Let me scroll up and find one of a simpler one. Where's our 210 net? Yeah, so let's do this one. 2% 10 days, net 30 days is our description. So our calculation of when it's due is 30 days. And our discount date is 10 days. And our discount percentage is 2%. So if I use this 21 payment terms, this will give me the ability to give a discount to that customer within a 10-day window, and then the full amount would be due on 30 days. This is the back-end setup. Go ahead.
But does that same functionality happen on the accounts payable side? I mean, I assume it is, but is that same functionality assigned to our AP vendor list as well?
And in fact, this payment terms table applies to both vendors and customers. They use the same because the calculation is exactly the same. Yep. So let's go ahead and do one with a 21. I'll go ahead and I set this one here. I'm going to create a quick little invoice just because
So
I want.
Matt, before you move on from the terms codes.
Yep.
We should be using one list.
Yeah.
Across companies. And so if there are terms codes that are active on the K Smith side that SmartSource doesn't have, we need to add them to the master list. We don't want separate terms codes.
So let me, I have consolidated, basically I've imported everything that was available on the two sides. If I send this to you, Steve, or someone to kind of consolidate down, compared to your SmartSource terms, make sure we're not missing anything, and then we can apply that for the K Smith customers.
Well, probably what needs to happen is if we have something that's, you know, in whatever system that they were on, if they have terms code 32, which is 12% discount, and we have one that's 12% discount, it's a different code, then their data needs to change to what?
To what you
the single
have.
table.
Okay.
So one code for that same term then?
What's that?
So you just have one code for the 12%?
Yes.
It's consistent across all organizations. Yeah, I mean, that sounds great.
Yeah, I've got a note to consolidate these. So I can show you a quick example of that discount and how BC functions there. Let's grab it there. So I'm going to go ahead and create an invoice. This is the process of creating a sales invoice is not going to happen very often. Most of our sales invoices are going to be created through our normal business process, meaning when we ship something, when the 3PL folks in the warehouse send a shipment, we'll have the ability to post an invoice, and I'll show you that here in a couple minutes. I'm going to just create a manual one for the purpose of showing the payment terms and illustrating a little bit of how those terms get posted through the process. Okay, so we've got our customer. In this case, I'm going to not do an item, but a GL account. Do we do, what was our, we'll just do it against revenue or sales. I know you do like hosting fees or whatever that you would charge on a line level rather than an individual item. And we've got a way to handle that. I'm going to just post this into our sales account just to make an illustration. So let's do our $500 monthly hosting fee. It's not taxable. My payment terms code came in automatically from my customer card when I created this. So at this point, I've filled out enough information that I can go ahead and post my invoice. I'll show how our posting date and due date come through. Okay. Once I post any sort of document, it always offers the chance to open that posted invoice. I'm going to say yes. And now I can see I've got a posting date of today because I created it today. It updated to today. My due date is 30 days, so 9/27. And that's my full detail. In my invoicing, I can see I've got my payment terms code of 21. But if I go to this customer card and look at the ledger entries, I'll be able to see that there is a discount available with a 10-day due date. So let me show that. I'm going to back out of here and come back into my customer card. You notice it's shuffled because I was on a filtered list. It no longer is showing there. So let me change to 21.
Hey, Matt, we're coming up on 11 o'clock. Did you want to keep going, or what does that look like for you guys?
I'm good for another 30 minutes. If anyone needs to drop off, obviously you can. If you guys are okay with spending a couple more minutes.
They're not, yes, not sure about the other folks on the call, but.
Yeah, and we have another call tomorrow where we can keep working through it, but I want to kind of walk through the receivables customer side if you guys have a couple more minutes. All right.
Okay, looks like someone has to drop. So if anyone has to drop, please do, but we'll keep going as long as Matt and the team here is open to it. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
And you can catch up on the recording. We'll have that available.
Yes.
Okay, so on my customer card, I now have my $500 balance, and you can see my balance due is 0. So the system looks at those due dates and gives me the two numbers that I want to look at. I'm going to go ahead and click on my balance due. It's blank because it's not due for the date that I have. I'm going to go ahead and open up my filter, and I'm going to go ahead and take out this due date filter. This is saying I want to look at everything up to 8/28, so today. Go ahead and clear that so that I can see this invoice. Now I can come in, let me pull my bar and scroll over. So now I have a due date of 9/27 and I have a payment discount date of 9/7. So there's my 10-day, and my discount amount is $10. That's my 2% discount that's available. So when I send this to my customer, this is what's going to show on their invoice, that there's a discount available. And if they make a payment and it comes in, the system will allow them, if it's made before 9/7, to take that $10 discount. We can talk receiving payments on another session, kind of the applying entries and that sort of stuff. We'll come back to that. But I just wanted to illustrate kind of the way that payment terms flows through on the invoice. Should be pretty straightforward and similar to your current systems. Any questions on payment terms?
You guys good? They're good.
Okay. All right. So let me go back to my list. We've talked through a number of things. We looked at customers, new customers. We looked at payment terms. We won't be editing payment terms. We'll just be assigning them. So let's talk posting the invoice for a shipped sales order. If you've listened to me ramble on in other meetings talking about kind of our overall process flow, we've talked a lot about putting in customer job cards and putting in shipments and sales orders and all that. Ultimately, what all that does is it creates a shipped inventory sales order. So let's go all the way back to our home screen and we'll look at our sales order list. At the end of all of that flow, customer puts in an order, the PM or CSR takes care of filling it out. It gets sent to the warehouse. We fulfill it and it gets shipped out of our warehouse to the customer, either from our warehouse or directly from the vendor. It doesn't really matter. At the end of it, our sales order is going to have a line that has been shipped and it has not been invoiced. I've mentioned this you've probably heard me say it before, but everything in BC, especially on a sales side, it also applies on the receiving side. There is a two-step process. There's an inventory transaction, which is the shipment, and then there's a finance or accounting transaction, which is the invoice. So let me show. Okay, there's one. Let me grab a sales order. And I'll illustrate this just for our purposes here. On my lines within my sales order, I have a couple different items, quantity of 500 each. I have a couple of fields over here, quantity to ship, quantity shipped, quantity to invoice, and quantity invoiced. So you can see it kind of flows from one to the other. If I were to create a brand new sales order, all of my quantities would be 0, and I would then have to ship it. Or it would be to ship, and then it would be shipped, and then it would be to invoice and invoiced. Ultimately, what the accounting folks are going to be doing is taking anything that has been shipped, and at the end of the day, posting an invoice against that shipment so that the customer then owes us the amount that was shipped. Okay. So let me real quick hop over to a customer that has a shipment that's ready to go. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah, perfect. I'm gonna create a. Do I have a vendor on this? Oh, I don't own this one. It was the other one that we did. This is one. Okay, good. We've got a sales order. All right. So this is a good example of what it looks like before any transactions have been done. This one, we've got a sales order. It's all confirmed. We have 100 of these key tags that are to be shipped. So that means the warehouse has not done their side. When it's done, it will move into quantity shipped. And then we can come in and invoice it. So I will go ahead and just make sure we have inventory. Is this one? Is it drop ship? Perfect. So in this case, I have a drop ship order. So this one is coming directly from my vendor to my customer, to my favorite credit union here. What is the trigger on you guys' side from kind of a business side when you know that you need to bill this customer? I would assume that there's some sort of a notice from the vendor that this product has been shipped. Is that kind of the trigger that you use?
No, it's from
Currently,
the sales
depending
team.
on, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. You can go ahead.
So, I mean, depending on, if it's Logic or SmartBooks, like for Logic, we get a physical ticket. So once we get a physical ticket, we check in the ticket and see if we can invoice it. For SmartBooks, the PMs use a smart sheets and they mark it ready to bill. And then we get notified that order is ready to bill. So we'll go in and look at it to make sure that everything, is correct, and then we'll invoice it.
Who gets
And-
go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention for Smart Source, we usually, after the vendor invoice is posted, we go ahead and bill the order because we know it's already shipped. So it's usually good to go. But the other part of it would be like warehouse is giving us shipping files and us importing that information. And typically we bill it as soon as it's imported, unless there's some type of trigger to say, no, this isn't ready to go. So.
Okay. Great. So, a couple different scenarios. We'll walk through each of those.
I think ideally that's how we want to start doing it, but I know when we had the conversation a couple weeks ago with Caitlin, she wanted a third status that was ready to bill because it was released and shipped. I think we talked about it and I don't think she was okay with that, but we could regroup again and see because I think Mark was asking you the same thing, but you said we only could have 2 statuses in BC. Is that correct?
By default, yeah, it's just the 2 options.
So I think we would have to change our workflow to match Smart Source because, I mean, that's our whole plan, our, goal to get on Smart Source is that we bill it, as quickly as possible. We don't wait because all the order entry, everything should be done up front. So it should be ready to bill once it ships.
Yep, exactly. Okay.
Except billings. It's not, Veracor has totally different. There's no job created, there's no logic ticket, there's no nothing but an email report from Veracor to me, and I create an invoice. I think that'll be a different workflow once all of this is connected, right? Because this will be pushing orders into Veracor, but we'll be billing out of here and not out of Veracor.
Yeah, those Michelle, those are going to be buyouts and they're going to be billing us for their services. Excella will. And so basically it'll be a buyout. And so we'll have an order number for every one of those.
So it'll be a monthly buyout for each.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's what I heard. I don't know what the full detail is, but.
Yeah. And really our goal is that the emails and notifications and the working with Veracor goes away. When they do something, they update it in their system and it tells our system, and you don't have to have that communication. It just updates it automatically, and you don't even have to upload a file at the end of the day or wait for a batching. It's going in real time as they're posting those shipments. So I'll show you a warehouse transaction here in just a minute where we can look at that. So this scenario here is a drop ship, meaning my vendor is shipping this directly to my customer. I'm not going to post my sales order because I have to post my purchase order first, which is what I got from my vendor. So similar to what the Smart Source process is. I'm looking at this and I found this from my customer item job card. So that's how I know it's an available one. But ideally, you're getting an invoice from Evans Manufacturing that says, hey, yep, here's your PO number. Here's the invoice for it. So let's go ahead and pull up that PO like we just got that invoice from the vendor. Okay. So they emailed over this invoice. They gave us an invoice number. I'm going to go ahead and fill out that invoice number. I'm going to update my posting date. This is the day that they sent or created that invoice. If they invoiced it 2 days ago and sent it and we got it today, then we may need to update that posting date to whatever was on their invoice so that it matches the terms that they have. But if it came in today, I'm going to assume that the posting date is today. I'm using a shortcut and putting T in there for today, which will update to today. I could also just type in 8/28 or whatever, and it would update there. looks like I don't have payment terms, working payment terms on this one. So I'm going to switch this from there to 30 days, which should update my due date to 9/21. And that is using the document date instead of the posting date, which is not what I want. So let's see if that will. All right, we've got to change how that's calculated. Let me. Okay. That's something that looks like our payment terms are not coming through. I'm going to just accept the 9/21 date. That's close enough for this exercise. So I've got there's really a couple things that I have to verify when I get an invoice. And this applies on, this is obviously the receivables or the payable side, right? Because this is a PO. But the same applies for both POs and sales orders, inbound and outbound. Really what I'm concerned about is I want to make sure my posting date is accurate. And I have a due date that's accurate and an invoice number. So again, this is coming in from the vendor. That's how I'm kind of triggering this. I'll show you how it posts to the sales order and creates the customer invoice as well. Who and how we manage who does each of these steps is up for discussion, but someone needs to post the vendor invoice and someone needs to post the customer invoice. I'm going to come down and look at my lines. It looks like this one didn't have a cost. Again, we're testing and playing with data, so it may not have all of it in there yet, but the function's there. So in this case, I got my invoice and it says, yep, there's 100 of these at $25 each. So my total is going to be the $2,500. I have the ability to put in a discount, an amount, or a percentage on an invoice level. If the vendor gives me a discount, this is where I can apply that. Again, we're going to keep it simple in this scenario. And my next step is I want to go ahead and receive and invoice this PO. So the vendor said, yep, I shipped all 100 of these key tags to your customer. Here's my invoice. We're going to go ahead and post, receive, and invoice this purchase order. Sorry, I have to do it separate. My message there, I'll show you it. A drop shipment from a purchase order cannot be received and invoiced at the same time. There's work that goes on in the background. I forgot we got to do them one at a time. So we'll read our error messages and adjust it. So instead of receive and invoice, I just did receive. My line over here now is quantity received 100. What that does in the background is it actually creates the shipment to the customer automatically. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. But I can go ahead and invoice now. Oh, yeah, sorry. Drop ships. And if the couple of folks who've done this in BC, we post the purchase shipment, purchase receipt. So my quantity received is here. Then I flip over to my sales order, which I can come to here. Let's go order, drop ship, sales order. So now I can find my sales order. My quantity shipped has been updated automatically. Now I need to create my customer invoice. So I can come in here and let's just double check my amounts. I have an amount, I've got quantities. Come out of this and I'll come grab it again. I'm going to open another tab so that I can grab that one. Just post it in a separate tab to show you the different way. Oops. Let's just Credit union. 1165. So now I can come in here again. I have shipped this because my vendor side went through. So now I'm ready to invoice it. I'm going to update my posting date to today. Looks like my due date is set to today. My payment terms did not get switched over correctly. So there, flip that. Okay. I'm trying to change it after I've released it, which is what that status is saying. My status is released. So in order to change my payment terms, I have to reopen. And I can come back and change those to the correct one, not the one that's wrong. Now I can come back in and release it. So now my due date is updated to the 27th. Okay. I have a field called external document number. This is where I can put in my customer PO number. So when they get the invoice, this is what will get passed back to them as their PO number. So just like on the PO side, I had a vendor invoice number to fill out. My external document number is my customer PO number so that I can pass that back when I send them the invoice. So I've updated my dates. My due date's correct. I put in my document number. My quantity and my amounts are correct. So I will go ahead and post my invoice. I know there are lots and lots of different scenarios of adding in charges and release fees and all those other things. We'll talk through what that looks like and how we add those in. But the process is the same. At the end of the shipping process, we can add in anything we need to on the invoice, post that invoice, and now I have a posted invoice that I can send to my customer.
Wouldn't all the release, any charges be entered by the PM? Would we? Because we would only be responsible for invoicing the order, right? And just verifying that the quantities that we're billing matches what we got invoiced for and make it. Or
Yeah,
are we adding charges to the order? Because we don't do that right now. It's all done by sales.
By the PMs, yeah. I will leave that up to the group to decide kind of what that flow looks like. I believe that's what we've been doing.
Sure, that's the case, Matt. They should be loading all of that stuff in there, and then by the time it gets to accounting, they're in a position just to verify and bill it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. Those would have been added in, and then you would just post that invoice with the charges.
Okay.
Just like we're now kind of looping back all the way to when we were looking at the customer card and pulling up the invoices. Now we have a new invoice that's created. If I were to go to this customer card, I could see this invoice with a due date of 9/27. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Matt, I think there might be some questions here. Tran, or Michelle, Jonah, do you have a question? No? Okay.
Month-end billing for Veracor, for instance. I'm not billing for product. I'm not talking BAS, which I also do. The month-end billing for Veracor could have been a 5-line spreadsheet or a 900-line spreadsheet of shipments. Freight. Who's entering all that information in the system for it to be faster?
So
Well, I think that information should be feeding in, right, Matt?
yes, so short term, our goal is to have the ability to import that Excel file or a list so that you can create that invoice from Veracor. Long term, and I'm hoping that will happen before the first month end, we'll have those lines automatically added in and creating a sales invoice automatically when the individual transactions happen.
That's the vision.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, 'cause right now I do all of that manually. Sales doesn't do anything in regards to Veracor bill.
And the first month, we might have to do it manually.
But I think that's gonna be all pushed to the PMs to order, to enter that in here, do all the order entry. We're only gonna be responsible for billing it. So all the stuff that you do, Michelle, you know how you just get a Vericor report and you gotta add, create an invoice out of 99. It's gonna actually be a job, and all those line items are gonna be either manually or they're gonna export an Excel file and create an order. So all those line items are already gonna be in BC, and then you're just gonna verify it. Cause you're gonna also see a copy of the invoice, cause Excel is gonna bill us for it. You're gonna verify that we're accounting for all the charges and you're just gonna invoice. You're not gonna do that, so it's gonna make your life a lot easier.
Because it's not in any system now.
Right. Yeah, the goal is to, and why we're doing this is so that it is, all is in one system, right? That we're kind of eliminating those sort of outliers.
It takes a while to do. Oh, yeah.
All right, you can continue, Matt, if you like.
All right. Yep. All right. So we were moving through a bunch of different screens, going back and forth with a PO and a sales order. We'll talk through and figure out who does each of those steps. But what I really wanted to show was that two-step process on that sales order, where we take the quantity shipped and post the shipment, which that's not you guys, that's going to happen. Any number of upstream people will handle it, whether that's the warehouse or a PM or something. But ultimately, your goal is when there is a quantity that has been shipped and a quantity to invoice, that's your big red flag that says, hey, this is where I need to step in and post that invoice for the customer. Unfortunately, my filter's not working because I've posted all of my orders, but really this sales order, so I'll come all the way back to home and show you kind of the list that's going to become your to-do list. If you're in the sales order list, this shipped, not invoiced, is a list of everything where that ship column has moved, but the invoice has not. This becomes everything that needs to be invoiced. You guys are all caught up. Good job. We can go home for the day. So that's really kind of our home base for any of those transactions. Okay. So that is these two scenarios: posting the invoice for a shipped inventory sales order. I know we're at almost our half hour. I walked through.
Pick up that tomorrow.
Yep, I walked through creating a sales invoice to a GL account. That was the kind of dummy one that I did to our sales account. We can review that again. And then tomorrow, I think we'll pick up with a sales credit memo / sales return order. Sound all right?
They're pretty excited.
Okay. All right. Thanks for patience while I figured out my technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll be good for tomorrow and we can go from there. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions or anything that comes up, or talk to Mary. She can pass it on as well.
All right. Well, and we recorded this session, so I'll save it to a folder and then you guys can look at it for training. Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone. I'll see you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.